Suho Kim is a civil engineering student. That is the sum of his existence, more or less. He studies load-bearing structures, drainage systems, soil composition. He eats convenience store ramen at midnight. He sleeps maybe 5 hours. He is unremarkable in every way that the world is needy and attached, and he is quietly fine with that. The person he loves most is his mother, who calls every Sunday and asks if he is eating enough, and he always says yes, even when the answer is no. That is his whole life. Ordinary, functional, structurally sound, you might say. Then he opens his eyes and none of it is real anymore. The world he wakes into is called Asrahan. It is a fantasy kingdom built from the bones of a web novel he once read to kill time between study sessions. And everything about it is wrong in the way that only a person who truly understands engineering would recognize. The roads flood after light rain. The noble estates collapse under their own weight because no one who designed them understood drainage or foundation depth. The architecture is decorative nonsense, held together by tradition and luck. Buildings lean, bridges crack. Entire sections of farmland drown seasonally because whoever laid out the irrigation network was apparently guessing. Suho stares at all of this with the eyes of someone who has spent 3 years learning exactly why structures fail, and what he sees makes his engineering soul physically hurt. But that is not even the worst part. The worst part is whose body he is wearing. He is Lloyd Frontera, youngest son of a once great noble family that has collapsed into debt so catastrophic it functions less like a number and more like a death sentence. Lloyd Frontera, in the original novel, is a punchline, a drunk, a bully, a minor antagonist who exists to be humiliated and then quietly written out of the story when he becomes inconvenient. The servants despise him. His family is ashamed of him. The county that bears his family's name is hemorrhaging money from every direction, and no one has any plan to stop it except to wait for the inevitable ruin. That is the life Suho Kim has just inherited. He takes a breath. He looks around. He starts measuring. The history of Lloyd Frontera does not read like a tragedy. It reads like a ledger of contempt. The man before Suho was not someone who fell from grace. He never had grace. He was cruel in the small, grinding way that people become cruel when they have no power except over those below them. And so he wielded what little he had with both hands. Servants were screamed at. Money meant for the estate was drained into wine and gambling. The tenants who farmed the Frontera land were squeezed and ignored in the same breath. And then there is the debt. The debt that his father signed and his brother couldn't contain, and that now sits like a stone on the chest of everyone who carries the Frontera name. The local moneylenders know it. The neighboring nobles know it. The kingdom's merchant guilds know it. Everyone has already done the math and arrived at the same answer. The Frontera family will be stripped of their title within the year. The land will be seized. The family will scatter. Lloyd himself, in the original story, gets drunk at the wrong time, insults the wrong person, and ends up beaten in a ditch, and that is where his story ends. Not with significance, not with mourning, not even with a proper scene. Just nothing. Suho sits with this information for a long, still moment. He is not afraid. He is not grieving. He is doing what engineers do. He is identifying the failure points. The regression in this story does not come from dying and waking. Suho Kim is already dead, in the sense that matters. The original Lloyd Frontera is gone. What lives inside this body now is a civil engineering student from the 21st century with 4 years of drafting experience, a working knowledge of Roman-era drainage innovation, and absolutely zero emotional attachment to the social hierarchies of a fantasy aristocracy. He does not need a second chance. He came in fresh, But the regression is real in a different sense. He has every chapter of the novel in his memory. He knows what is coming. He knows which noble families will rise and which will fall. He knows where the plot is going, who the hero is, what catastrophes are scheduled. He is standing at the beginning of a story he has already read, and that is a kind of regression. Not of the body, of information. And information, to an engineer, is the most structural thing in the world. The first power that activates is not magic. There is no dramatic awakening, no light splitting the sky. Suho simply picks up a stick and starts drawing in the dirt. Drainage schematics, foundation layouts. He walks the Frontera land with his eyes scanning the way an engineer scans, reading the slope of the earth, feeling where water pools, understanding what the soil composition says about what can be built here and what cannot. The servants watch him like he has lost his mind. Maybe he has. He is Lloyd Frontera kneeling in mud and talking about gradient ratios to a confused farmhand. But then something shifts. A system awakens in him, the way systems awaken in these stories. But it is not a combat system or a magic system or a social manipulation system. It is a construction interface. Skills, blueprints, resource calculations. It is a civil engineering overlay on a medieval fantasy world, and Suho feels something in his chest click into place like a support beam finding its footing. That is it. That is the tool. Now he builds. The old Lloyd would have looked at the crumbling Frontera estate and found something or someone to blame. The old Lloyd would have poured wine and told himself that decline was simply the natural order, that some families fall, that this was fate. The old Lloyd did not understand load distribution or runoff coefficients or the economic leverage of productive land. He did not understand that the reason the Frontera estate was failing was not destiny. It was engineering negligence compounded over generations. Suho understands all of this. The new Lloyd walks the same ground and sees it differently. He sees the slope where water should be redirected and is not. He sees the farmland that could triple its yield if someone bothered to lay proper irrigation channels instead of hoping for adequate rainfall. He sees the mill site that could be generating income if the water wheel were correctly positioned. He sees a county that has been mismanaged not because of bad luck, but because no one here understands the basic relationship between infrastructure and wealth. The old Lloyd saw a dying estate. The new Lloyd sees a construction project. And construction projects have solutions. They have sequences. They have materials lists and labor schedules and completion milestones. He begins drafting. The servants think he is writing drunk poetry. He is writing the financial resurrection of the Frontera name in the language of civil engineering. He already knows the flooding will start in 6 weeks. He has the chapters memorized. He already knows that the eastern field will be unsalvageable if the drainage ditch is not redirected by the 3rd month. He begins on the Quaidem Sacrestat ad Perdagia Disachigiastan Bachiite. First, coordinating labor with the calm efficiency of someone who has managed construction timelines, even only in academic exercises. He already knows the name of the merchant who will come through the county, offering a predatory grain deal that the original Lloyd accepted, drunk, and which bankrupted the family another layer deeper. Suho intercepts this, politely, with documentation. The merchant leaves confused and slightly unnerved. He already knows that the neighboring lord has been quietly lobbying to absorb the Frontera lands and has allies at court who are watching for the moment of collapse. He begins making that moment structurally impossible. He already knows which servants are loyal and which are reporting to outside interests, because the novel told him, and he adjusts accordingly, not with cruelty, but with the calm reassignment of personnel in a project structure. He already knows that there is a mineral deposit on the western edge of the Frontera land that no character in the novel ever discovered because no character in the novel thought to survey it. He surveys it. He already knows what the hero of the original story will need in 2 volumes' time, and he positions himself to be useful rather than obstructive. He is not trying to become the protagonist. He is trying to become the most indispensable infrastructure in this story's world, which is, if you think about it, exactly what good engineering does. It doesn't ask to be noticed, it just makes everything else possible. The confrontation, when it comes, is not a battle. There is no dramatic duel, no magic clash, no villain revealing their monologue. It is quieter than that, and somehow worse. The local moneylender, a man named Viscount Karen, comes to the Frontera estate with paperwork, and the particular smile of someone who has been waiting a long time to collect. He expects to find the estate in its documented state of disarray. He expects the drunk, erratic boy the reports have described. He finds instead a young man standing at the entrance to a functioning drainage system, reviewing labor reports, wearing an expression that contains absolutely zero warmth. Not hostility, not nervousness, not desperation. Zero warmth. Karen begins his speech about debts and deadlines and the unfortunate nature of the Frontera financial position. Suho listens to all of it. Then he produces a different set of documents. Updated land valuations based on increased agricultural output. Projected revenue from the newly operational mill. A detailed counter-proposal that restructures the debt on terms that are, notably, entirely legal and entirely disadvantageous to Karen. The Viscount's smile does the thing where it stays on the face but disconnects from the eyes. He starts to object. Suho does not raise his voice. He simply explains, in the patient, technical tone of someone presenting a load-bearing calculation, that the estate is no longer in the position Karen's information describes, and that if Karen would prefer to continue operating on outdated data, that is his choice. But the paperwork is already filed. That is it. No explosion. No dramatic reversal. Just a young man who knows more than everyone in the room and chose exactly when to show it. There is a philosophy underneath all of this that matters. Engineering is not about power. It is not about domination or destiny or the dramatic arc of chosen heroes. Engineering is about understanding a system deeply enough to fix what is broken in it. Suho Kim did not choose to become Lloyd Frontera. He did not ask for the debt or the reputation or the crumbling land. He was handed a failing structure, and he did what engineers do. He identified the problem. He designed the solution. He built it. One drainage ditch at a time. One redirected merchant at a time. One updated ledger at a time. The greatest estate designer is not a revenge story, and it is not a power fantasy in the traditional sense. It is a story about competence, about the specific satisfaction of watching something broken become functional because someone finally applied the right knowledge to it. And somehow, that is more satisfying than any sword fight could ever be. If this hit, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to other Manhwa fans. Subscribe to Plot Vault EN so you don't miss the next recap. And drop the name of the Manhwa I should recap next in the comments.